So then, how do you get from this, when your seeds have recently germinated in a seed tray, to this, which is where you're transferring them, or something called pricking them out, into individual cells? Now, vegetables go on a journey. That you sow them as seeds, then they start to get a little bit larger, then you have to give them their own space. But there's various techniques for doing that, because at this stage here they're quite tender. So handling them and transferring them into larger pots like this has to be done with a little bit of care. And in this video, what I'm going to show you is how I will prick them out or transfer them from these types of trays into these individual cell trays, so that they can grow on, and eventually they'll become much more mature plants and they can be planted outside. And the techniques I'm going to show you are going to work perfectly well whether you're transferring vegetable seedlings or flowers. It all works the same way. I planted these pepper seeds about 3 weeks ago, and they've been in my propagator. These are Carolina Reaper, so these are an exceptionally hot pepper. They do need temperatures of 25 degrees constantly to germinate, so if you haven't got the right type of temperatures, you'd have trouble germinating these. So now it's time for me to thin them out and put them into individual pots. I've counted, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 10 have germinated, which is quite good. So the first thing I want to do is take them out of the seed tray that I've put them in. You've got to treat seedlings very gently. I use a very thin flathead screwdriver to encourage them out of the seed trays. Some people I've seen using chopsticks and other types of thin implements. It doesn't really matter what you use, as long as you're gentle with the seedlings and just hold them by the leaves, because you don't want to affect the stem or the roots. So the way I'll do it is just gently lift the soil and just hold the leaves and just pull the seedling out, and you can actually see the seedling there. And I'm going to pop it into my little tray here, because I'm going to put them in at the same time. If you feel like you need to put any pressure on the seedling to take it out, then it shouldn't be taken out. You need to loosen it a bit more, because the danger is you'll end up loosening the stem. So we'll do that now for all 9. The more compost you bring out, the better. There we go. So all of my pepper seedlings now are out of the compost, and now we need to put them into pots. So that's what we're going to do next. Now typically for seedlings, for pepper seedlings, I will put them into these types of pots. They're not particularly deep, so they're still pretty small pots, because remember, these will eventually be potted on one more time. So what we'll do is fill up the pot with compost, give it a bit of a little tamp down, and then what I'll do is I'll make a hole with my, in this case my screwdriver, in the middle, but it's pretty wide, because I want to have plenty of room to put the seedling in. Then I'll grab one of my seedlings by the leaves, and I'll just pop it, and I'll just hold it or hover it over the top of the pot, and then just gently with my screwdriver or whatever you're using, just put the soil back, all the time supporting the seedling. And then, without actually touching the stem itself, I'll then start to tamp down around it, and then just finally put a bit of loose compost around the edge. And in all of that process, I've not touched the roots or the stem of the pepper once. So that's the pepper in its pot, and what I'll do is I'll give that some water. So that's how you repot these types of peppers. These are Carolina Reaper. Now I do have a second variety of peppers that I sowed at exactly the same time as the Carolina Reapers. These are a new variety that I've not grown before, called Gusto Green. You can see that these have germinated very well, but these stems are a little bit longer. If I leave these any longer, these stems can get leggy, which means that the stems will start to grow really high and really thin, and that's because of the lack of light in this particular potting shed. There's enough, but not sufficient, so therefore when they get to this stage they need to be repotted, and then I will put them back in the propagator for a week and then take them to my polyhouse where there's plenty of light. Something worth mentioning when you're growing peppers, particularly as seedlings, is that don't overwater them. They don't need a huge amount of water compared to other types of vegetables that you may grow. And I know that a lot of people tend to overwater them. You'll notice, well, hopefully you can see in the video, that this soil is quite dry. Now here's a good little tip for potting on seedlings where the stem is quite long, because if I was to put a hole in here with my screwdriver with my finger, I'd be hovering the plant over and it might not go in as far as I'd want it to. So instead of using the hole in the middle technique, I will put some compost in the pot to about half full, and then use my fingers in the middle and pull it all to one side. Don't know if you can see there, the compost is just on one side of the pot. Then what I'll do is I'll put the pot down, get my plant, and always remember when you're handling seedlings, always handle them by the leaves. And then I will literally hover the seedling over the pot in the position that I want it, and then just gently fill around it with compost. And that way I know that the roots and the stem are completely covered in the compost. Because sometimes you can damage the gentle stems of the seedlings if you use a method where you're putting a hole in the middle of the pot and trying to cram the stem into a small hole. That is the way you will do it for large stems, and you'll notice that the leaves are just appearing just above the surface, so everything below that is completely covered. So as you can see, using that technique, you can take a seed tray and produce lots of individual plants, and that's necessary to give the plants the additional space they need, the additional nutrients to allow them to grow on. I do hope you found that video useful. It's given you one or two ideas about how you might do that for yourselves, and also how to care for your plants and how to ensure that you make the most of the seedlings that you've got, because it is quite easy to damage them if you don't handle them in the right way. So if you did like this video, then don't forget to give it the thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for future videos on how to sow and grow fruit and veg and one or two recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button, and I'll see you all on the next video.